Hi, my handle's Lord of Emeralds. I'm a poor person. I know you hear me say that and you're like, oh, you can't be all that badly off. I mean, look at all the gear you've got piled behind you. Surely you gotta have some disposable income for you to acquire all this stuff. It took me years to collect this stuff. Numerous poor financial decisions when I really could have spent the money better on something more vital. Back in December, I bought an early 70s Fender amp for $1,200, and it was right before I was about to go on vacation to Indiana to see my family. So, you know, that $1,200 probably would have been better suited to just sit there, be there for emergencies, you know, in case my car broke down along the way and I needed to get it fixed or something. Thankfully, that didn't happen, though, and I now have an early 70s Fender amp. So yeah, it took me a long time to collect this stuff, and poor financial decisions were made in the process of acquiring this equipment. But, you know, if you want to get different sounds, you know, different distortion characters or whatever, without spending $1,000 on an amp, then pedals are a great way to do that at a fraction of the price. And surprise, surprise, I've got a whole lot of pedals too. And I recently added a couple of new pedals to the collection of distortions, fuzzes, and other signal-destroying devices. I got this Boss Metalcore ML-2 pedal. Look at how the plate for the controls is like brushed metal, and the rest of the box is like granite texture. I think that's really cool. And I got a Metal Zone. First time in my life that I've owned a Metal Zone, actually. You know, I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. So the Metalcore and the Metal Zone, along with the other two Boss high-gain distortion pedals that I previously had, the Mega Distortion and the HM-2, that brings my total number of Boss high-gain distortion pedals up to 4. 4 of the same family, I have them all together now. So I thought that what I would do is sit down and really just figure out what they all do, exactly what they all do, like EQ curves, distortion characters. Turn on my camera, I'm recording everything, so I'm gonna drag you along with me for the Boss High Gain Distortion Bonanza. But wait, we can't get into it yet. First, I gotta tell you about the other gear that I'm using. You know how these videos are. You gotta explain the recording setup, you know, you gotta do a long intro. I tried to fit some jokes and funny stuff into the intro. At least I didn't say, hey guys, at the beginning. So, you know, give me that. Give me a little grace here. I'm trying my best. So this is gonna be my supplier of guitar noises for today. This cheap-ass, terrible guitar from a unnamed European music retailer. This thing has fought me ever since I've got it. I hate this guitar.
Look at this shit. I was just trying to put new strings on, and look, this thing popped straight off.
But since it's so bad, I can tune it to drop C and just keep it in drop C all the time and beat on it as hard as I want. For amplifiers, I'm going to use my Seymour Duncan pedal platform amp. From what I understand, this is meant to basically just be a power amp, so it's like just plugging straight into your guitar amp's effects return or something. It's meant to have as neutral of a sound as possible, so, you know, we're just going to get the character of the pedals. The cabinet that you're going to be hearing is my Mesa 4x12 with the stock vintage 30s in it, and everything's being recorded with an SM58. And of course, you know, you're not going to be hearing any post-processing or EQ on anything. The same goes for the full band mixes that I'm going to do later. Not going to put any EQ or post-processing or anything on those guitars. Even if, you know, they might kind of beg for it, I'm going to leave them untouched, because I want you to experience the pedals in their rawest form possible. Hey, it's Editing Emeralds here. I forgot to mention this during the video, but as an analysis aid, I'm running white noise into each pedal, and I'm tweaking the EQ controls while I track it with a frequency analyzer. So that's going to help us get an idea of exactly what the EQ controls do. You're going to see that pop up occasionally. All right, that's the recording setup. Now we can actually start the video. Bringing this thing back from the new metal guitar tones video. I still don't think I've changed the settings on it. So out of all the pedals that I'm going to be looking at, this one is the most full range / broadband. Let me show you what I mean by that. So there's two EQ controls, bottom and tone, which are low and high boost respectively. And the high boost is kind of interesting. It's a really wide boost up around 5 or 6 kilohertz, which is, you know, that kind of sounds a bit weird because most high boosts are a little bit lower than that, like around 2 to 3 or 4K in the presence region where the pick noise is. But this high boost is in the fizz region. The low boost is also centered pretty high, around 120 hertz. not a very good sounding low boost. Like I said, centered around 120 hertz. Whereas, you know, the low fundamental of, you know, the low E string on a guitar is closer to 100 hertz, and I'm in drop C, so that's even lower. So not the most focused low boost. Overall, this pedal kind of sounds to me like what a distortion pedal sounds like if you plug it into a cabinet that doesn't have, you know, the vintage 30 or vintage 30 style type of speakers in it. Like if you run a distortion pedal into something that has like Jensen speakers in it or something like a Fender amp. In almost every case, it's going to sound more scooped, it's going to sound more muddy, and it's going to sound more fizzy. Because vintage 30 speakers are kind of meant to give you a mids tunnel. You know, they've got that presence boost, they've got a tighter low end. You follow me? You understand what I'm saying here? I hope so. This pedal actually has 2 distortion controls. It's got a distortion knob and a gain boost knob. So, you know, double distortion. Just the distortion knob already gives you too much distortion. I've never used the gain boost. Let's see what it does. Huh, it didn't boost it as much as I thought it would. Maybe it's just on there for like weak pickups that maybe can't chuck out as much signal level as some people would like to get the ultimate ridiculously saturated tone. Let me dial this thing in a little bit more. Yeah, I think this thing is suited best to, you know, just giving it a healthy low and high boost and just turning it into a scooped distortion for like 90s and early 2000s stuff. So that's what I'm going to use it for the jam. I'm going to keep it in line with what I did last time. This is going to sound like, I don't know, like a third-rate Deftones B-side wannabe reject. I'll just let it roll. That sounded kind of cool. It doesn't cut through a mix very well, which probably has to do with the placing of the low and high boosts, but, you know, it's a perfectly serviceable, basic-ass distortion pedal, worth the $54.99 I spent on it. Alright, let's now move on to a much more well-known member of the family, the Metal Zone. Oh yeah, we all know this thing, the stuff that 90s death metal is made of, and to many people, the scourge of good metal tone. But you might be surprised to hear that out of all the pedals I'm testing today, this is the most versatile. I was playing it with all the EQ controls set to noon just now, and you notice that it sounds distinctly un-Metal Zone-like. Well, let's get into the EQ controls. So there's a fixed low and high boost, centered at around 120 Hz and 4 kHz respectively. Lower placement of the high boost than the Mega Distortion, but, you know, now we're getting into kind of that ice-picky, unpleasant high boost. Oh yeah, that's the Metal Zone we all know and love. Since the low boost is placed similarly to the Mega Distortion, I feel like it should also be used sparingly so as not to induce mud. Honestly, even just that little bit's enough. The mid-range control is 2 pots stacked on top of each other, and it has a huge control range. It goes all the way from 200 Hz all the way up to 5 kHz. So there are a few interesting things you can do with this. You can use it to counteract the fizz that the high boost induces. You do that by setting the mid frequency to about 3 o'clock on the pot and then adjusting the level to taste while you boost the highs. You can also turn this thing into a recipe for instant rectifier. You do that by setting the mid frequency to a little after 9 o'clock, which equates to around 500 Hz, and then you just scoop it. And you boost the low end a bunch and the highs just a little bit. Third, if you just leave the mid frequency at noon, maybe a little after noon, and then boost or cut to taste, then that'll give you the classic scoop sound. And if you crank it all the way when the mids are set to about noon, then you'll almost get like a chainsaw kind of frequency. An extremely versatile set of EQ controls. I wish that these EQ controls were on every distortion box. Now, I know that ever since the Ola England video that everybody has seen about the Metal Zone came out, there's been a bunch of talk about how, you know, the Metal Zone is supposed to go in the effects loop of your amp instead of in front of it to reduce the fizz and all that. You know, it's meant to be a preamp. You've heard the story before. That's how you make it sound good. I don't agree. One, there's nothing whatsoever in the official documentation for the pedal that says that it must be used in the effects loop. Two, you just need to go easy with that high boost and not go crazy with the mid scoop. You know, there's a lot of good sounds hidden in this pedal, but it's also extremely easy to make it sound pretty bad. Thankfully, it's easy to avoid making it sound bad if you just go easy on the highs and don't scoop it too much. Honestly, I kind of like the way it sounds just pretty much neutralized. For the upcoming jam, that's pretty much what I'm going to put it at. I mean, I'm going to boost the lows and highs a little bit, and maybe even the mids a little bit as well. And play some groovy death metal. Triplets. I haven't done a track with triplets at all on this channel. Or, you know, 6/8 or 3/4 if you want to be pedantic about it. Alright, let's let it roll. Let's hear how the Metal Zone sounds with a full band mix. like that jam. I thought it was pretty raw sounding. A thing about the Metal Zone that kind of reveals itself on a recording is there always seems to be this spiky, unpleasant kind of characteristic to the distortion. Even if you try to avoid it with the EQ, it's still kind of there. Like that signature Metal Zone spikiness is just inherent in the distortion character somehow. Whatever. It's still cool. It's still versatile. I'm still going to use it as much as I can. Love the Metal Zone. And now, let's do the one that you've all been waiting for. It's HM-2 time. Of course, you all know the HM-2. You know that it's the Swedish chainsaw. You've heard it 1,000 times before. Whatever. This isn't one of the cool HM-2s, by the way. It was made in Taiwan, not made in Japan like the cool ones are. There were 2 of them sitting in the guitar store. One was made in Japan, one was made in Taiwan. The Taiwanese one was cheaper, so I got it. But what does it actually do to your tone? Well, first of all, the distortion control's useless. It's effective for like the first 20% of its rotation, and then it just does nothing. It maxes out after you've turned it like 20% of the way. But what do we care about ineffective distortion controls? This is metal, goddammit! We want our distortion controls up all the time, every time! So yeah, distortion control, it's either on or it's off. Let's go to the EQ. The low boost on this one is lower focused than the other 2 we've looked at so far. This one's around 90 hertz. Notice how much cleaner of a low boost that is? Just 30 hertz lower makes so much of a difference, and it's more compatible with the lower tuning that I've got this guitar in. But the color mix, which is the mid-range control, is where the real magic happens. It's an EQ centered at just over 1K. Left of noon is cut, right of noon is boost. And oh boy, what a boost and cut it is. So, you know, it's not just the Swedish chainsaw. You know, you could get, like, scooped fuzzy doom sounds out of this thing as well. But of course, you know, you just roll everything to 10 and you get the thing. But here's the thing, I don't think that it's just the EQ that gives the HM-2 its signature sound. The distortion character is also really distinctive. Like, even on more moderate settings on the pedal's EQ, like, you can still tell that it's an HM-2. It's got a super unique distortion character to it. It's like a really unique fuzz and distortion middle ground almost. Like, you could slap that EQ curve in front of anything. You can put a massive boost at 90 hertz and a massive boost at 1.2 kilohertz, but, you know, it's not going to get you that sound. You need the distortion character as well. And that's a big thing that I feel is missing from all of the HM-2 clones and remakes that I've heard. They just can't nail the distortion character. There's something really special about the HM-2's distortion character, and I think that it's equally as important to the chainsaw sound as the EQ curve is. If anybody knows any technical stuff behind how the HM-2 makes its distortion, and if it's, you know, different in any way from other typical distortion circuits, then put it down in the comments, let me know about it. Let's jam on this thing. So, you know, of course I'm going to max out everything. I'm going to do the chainsaw sound, but I'm actually not going to use the pedal platform amp for this jam. I'm gonna feed it into my 6505's clean channel. Well, clean-ish. 6505s can't do clean. I just feel the pedal sounds a little bit anemic going into the pedal platform amp, and I feel like it would benefit from having some actual preamp circuitry to go through and roughen up the sound, make it even more grinding. So yeah, you're not going to be hearing the pedal platform amp this time, but everything else is still the same. SM58 and Mesa cab. So let's do some straightforward death metal. This is also going to be a good opportunity for me to practice like my extreme metal drumming, like blast beats and stuff, which I'm not very good at. Like I'm not very good at any of the instruments that I play in these videos. Like me playing instruments for these videos is a necessary evil, right? Especially drums. Like if I could, I said this in the last video, if I could get away with not filming a playthrough segment for the drums and just programming them, then I would every time. But I know that it's YouTube, and I know that you want to have a visual spectacle. And so I continue to put real drums in my demo songs, no matter how tough it is to play them, no matter how tough it is to mix them, no matter how bad the recordings sound in this shitty second floor room, whatever. I'm not going to get hung up about it. I'm just going to let the jam roll. It did its job. It did its job, right? You know, what did you expect? It's the chainsaw tone. You know, it's gonna work. It's gonna do you if you want disgusting, grimy death metal. And I think that jam succeeded pretty well at being that. All right, next pedal and last pedal. Thank goodness this video is almost over. My legs are falling asleep. All right, last and potentially least, the metalcore ML-2. I think it's funny how it's metal core, like two words, metal and core, even though metalcore as one word is an established music genre, probably one that existed at the time that this pedal was introduced. So I think it's funny how they spelled metalcore as two words. So with this thing, you kick it on and immediately the high and low controls are boosting something, even though they're at noon. The low control gives you a decent low boost right at 100 hertz. Still not as clean of a low boost as the HM-2s. And that low boost is active as soon as you turn the pedal on. If you want to get rid of it, if you want to just have a neutral low end, then you gotta back it off to about 9 o'clock. The high knob gives you a presence boost at around 2.5K, which might rival the Metal Zone in terms of how unpleasant it sounds. Like, geez, it just tears. It tears at your ears. These are pretty narrow EQ bands, too, when compared to all the other pedals. So, you know, you can't really do what you can do with the Mega Distortion, where you boost the highs and lows and it kind of forms a V-shaped EQ curve, and you just turn it into a scoop distortion. You can't do that with the metalcore. If you try to do that, then it ends up looking like, I don't know, like Batman or something. It just doesn't sound great. The ideal setting for this pedal, if you want the most neutral sound from it, I guess, is back the low control off to about 9 o'clock again, and leave the high control at noon. And even then, you know, it still kind of sounds underwhelming, like it needs something else. Like if that high frequency control wasn't placed in a bad spot, then I feel like this would be a much more usable pedal. But as it is, this is kind of the only sound that you can get out of it, or well, that I can get out of it, that I kind of enjoy. So yeah, this is my least favorite of the 4 pedals that I'm testing right now. So for this final jam, I'm going to give it a little bit of help. I'm going to kick its aggression up a notch by running it into my custom 1x12 with the Celestian Blue speaker in it instead of the Mesa cab. That Celestian Blue is an extremely mid-forward and aggressive sounding speaker, so if there's anything that can make this thing sing and cut through a mix and be, you know, properly nasty sounding, I think it's the Blue. Also, for this final jam, I'm not going to do live drums. I'm just going to program them. I have to turn out several pieces of music every time for these videos. And again, tracking drums is tough, mixing drums is tough, playing drums is tough, getting drums to sound good in this room with the cheap-ass mics I have is tough. So, you know, it's, like I said, it's a necessary evil. Like, it's all for the sake of trying to make these videos visually interesting, which I know is, again, tough, because I film them on my phone, and, like, my space looks like shit. I can't believe that you watch these videos. Like, I can't believe that I get like proper thousands of views on these things. Why are you still watching? Why don't you go watch somebody else with better production value? Jesus Christ. Okay, sorry. Anyway, no live drums for this final jam. Sorry. But to compensate, I'm going to try doing some vocals. Now, I'm not like a world-class vocalist, you know, I do a little bit here and there, but since the pedal is called metalcore, I'm gonna make this final jam like a modern hardcore track. And all you have to do for that kind of music is just yell a whole bunch about somebody that you hate. So, you know, that sounds easy enough, right? Let's get into it. Alright, that's enough of that. I've embarrassed myself enough for one video already. Gotta save some for next time. So let's just go ahead and wrap up. All 4 of these pedals have their uses. Maybe the metalcore not so much. I absolutely love the HM-2 and the Metal Zone. The Mega Distortion is kinda but, you know, again, it's a basic-ass, scooped, 90s sounding distortion. It's good at that. All of these things can make distortion sounds if you want a distortion sound. So, you know, you can reach for any of them and you'll get distortion of some kind. Varying quality, but you will get distortion. What's my point I want to make with this? I gotta tie this back into the beginning somehow. I guess my overarching point would be, if your supply of gear is limited, if you don't have access to everything all the time, if you're not higher up the YouTube food chain and you don't have the ability to get whatever you want whenever you want, then what you should do with what you have is really get to know it inside out. Like, know exactly what every bit of it does to your sound. EQ curves, parameter sweeps, distortion characteristics, everything. Because, you know, if you don't have all that much stuff, if you don't have the ability to get all that much stuff, then, you know, just playing with what you already have and trying to milk as much out of it as possible, you might discover that it can do some things pretty well that you previously thought that maybe you needed a $2,000 piece of equipment for. And it'll make decisions about what gear to use easier when you have a certain sound in your head and you want to try to bring it out of your head and into the real world. So yeah, that's it. That's the video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for watching all of these stupid videos that I've been making about gear and tone on YouTube. I've been running this channel for a year now, and I never would have thought that I would rack up the view counts that I have, even though they're not really all that impressive when compared with some of the other heavy hitters in the YouTube guitar space. It still means a lot to me that, you know, 7,000 plus people will sit down and watch an almost 30-minute video about me twiddling knobs on my Marshall valve state. That means a lot to me, so thank you so much for watching these videos. I have no plans to monetize this channel. I have no plans to turn this channel into a platform for selling products. I just want to use this channel as a space to document my journey as a hobbyist recording engineer and musician, and show off cool music stuff that comes into my head. And just do that whenever. No upload schedule, no pressure, just put out a video whenever I want. So, you know, if you were interested by this video and other videos that I've made, or you want to see other videos that I've made, then go watch other videos that I've made. Like this video, leave a comment down below about your Boss distortion pedal experience, and if you really like what you see, then subscribe. Again, no telling when the next video is going to come out, but it will be out eventually. I'm working on a video for the Fender amp that I said I bought. Still don't know what angle I'm going to go at for it, but that video will probably be up next on the chopping block unless I think of something different that would be more interesting before then. That's all I've got for you today. Take care of yourselves, everybody. I'm out of here.